Welcome back to Facing Dementia, our monthly conversation where we shine a light on dementia, self-care, and the power of energy medicine to shift patterns and create a more inspiring future. I'm joined once again by the wonderful Laurin Wittig. She's an intuitive mentor, a founder of Heart Light Wellness, host of the Curiously Wise podcast, and award-winning author. And Laurin is a circle leader, healer, and storyteller with a deep passion for helping women reclaim their sovereignty and wisdom. And as many of you know from episode 1, Laurin has been diagnosed with the precursors to dementia, and she's courageously sharing her journey and discovery with us. And instead of retreating, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for. Instead of retreating, she's leaning into ancient wisdom, spiritual practices, and energy medicine to find healing and empowerment. So today, Laurin is going to take us on a deeper journey into her shamanic explorations. And she's also been working on the constellations, and she has that to bring with us as well. So she's traveling back through her DNA to uncover generational patterns, ancestral imprints, and then stories that may hold wounds, and then the wisdom that comes from that. Whew. Welcome, Laurin. I'm so excited for this conversation today.
Me too. It always makes me go back and reflect before we get on a call with each other because I don't always remember exactly what I've been through. But you coached me into journaling and keeping track of things. So thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things too, when you're working energetically, just so people know this, when you're working energetically, what came before disappears. It's just forgotten. It's not important anymore. It's not even in the realm. And so you might not have any memory of those pieces. And that's important to remember moving forward because it's not you actually forgot. It's energetically, it's no longer in alignment. And this is a different way of working than I took some medication and then how did I feel and what changed? That kind of thing, because it's energetically, the whole frequency is different.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah. I call it forgetting. Yeah. That's
I know, but we don't want to claim that anywhere near dementia.
No, that's my lifelong.
Yeah.
I have friends who know, I go, oh, I forgot about that. And they don't worry about me, because once I'm reminded, it comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now to start our conversation, for those people listening to the podcast for the first time, number one, if it's the first time, please make sure you go back to episode 1 that we did. But part 2 of it is we always set it up as a healing session. So it's very specifically put together. We have our intention of where we're going in this podcast, and it's every engagement with another person is a healing opportunity. And so by connecting in, listening to this podcast, you've chosen already have a healing session today, and we're here to say we're here to support that. And we're going to add tea to it and a couple of herbs so that you can have the frequency of those herbs to come with it, and also for a way to realize you're not in here by yourself. Herbs do help support us every day, as well as our conversation. So Laurin, what did you put in your teacup?
I have today mango ginger. And I always steep it extra long because I like the really sharp gingery, spice to it. So it's kind of a sweet and spicy, but emphasis on the spicy.
Perfect. What I do know about ginger, I will share here, and maybe people have heard me say it before, but ginger's come up a lot in the last couple of weeks. And ginger is the opportunity to let go so you can receive. And when you know that, if ginger's added to what you're doing, you can ask yourself, what am I holding on to too tight? What am I afraid to let my elbow open and relax, or let my fingers let go of those things? And once I've done that, now what is available to come forward and into me that couldn't get in because there wasn't enough room? So I just want to bring that forward because it's so powerful. Ginger is incredible.
Yeah.
All right. I brought Releasing the Warrior today. But if you went on a shamanic voyage, then we probably need to see where do we have our strengths And releasing the warrior is for the wood element, for liver and gallbladder, for those two systems. And they're a part of spring growth and possibility. And its purpose is to help us to open up, express what is most important, and then reorganize our energy for full potential. I like that idea.
I think that's what I've been doing this month.
Right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And a lot of people too, when they're not well, they just stop because rest, we know that rest is important to rejuvenate. But sometimes the stopping means you actually don't change anything, so nothing changes.
Right.
And so that realization, like you said, of so much happened this month, even trying to remember it all. So impactful. So we can reorganize our energy to bring around our full potential. And that's what we're going to have today out of this blend. And I chose, there's several really key ingredients in this blend, but I chose juniper berry and black pepper. And the juniper tree is just out the window here, and it is full of bright blooms of the berry. It's so gorgeous right now. This clears away fear and stagnation. It invites renewal, courage, and protection, and it teaches us to stand strong even when ancestral weight feels heavy. And I think when people think about what has come before, many of us carry a heavy load. So I know you were smiling and laughing there. Anything you want to add there?
Oh, it's just too spot on for a coincidence that you chose that. It's exactly the journey I've been on for the last month or so since we last talked. Yeah, it's been exciting and changing and all kinds of good stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, so juniper berry is going to do its job. And then we have black pepper. So this is igniting our fire within, awakening our voice and strength to be able to speak our truth, to break through old limitations, and then create a future that's filled with vitality and clarity. Okay, so this tea is going to release what is no longer serving us, goes along with your ginger, reclaim our warrior spirit, and reorganize our energy to walk forward with confidence and with purpose. All right, so I'm going to give a little tea ritual. I don't do this on all the podcasts, but in this one, this has been an important piece of it. So I'd like you to just hold your cup in your hands and feel its warmth. So if you've signed on to this podcast and didn't make your tea yet, you've got something beside you, great. And if you want to stop and go make something, that's fine too. So feel its warmth as though you're holding your own inner fire. Now, if you breathe in the aroma, and we know this goes to the limbic system, connects us to the movement patterns. Imagine juniper clearing your path, black pepper sparking your courage. And I'm going to say ginger here too, ginger opening the space, and the wood element stretching like new growth towards the light. And as you sip, you can silently affirm, I release what is old, I awaken my warrior spirit, and I create my inspiring future. Take a breath, feel the shift, a reconnection to the strength within your DNA, and not just the struggles of the past, but the resilience and the wisdom waiting to be lived fully now. With that, cheers, Laurin. Thanks.
Cheers.
And if we wanted to go back in ancestor time, we would have said slange.
Yes.
I just had to say that.
Yep, our good old Southern ancestry there, Celtic ancestry.
Exactly. All right. So let's start with that shamanic journey. And tell us, first of all, how do people find somebody to do shamanic work? What does that mean? And then please just start into what that journey's been for you.
Okay. So I know I've been a shaman in many lifetimes, and so I was able to move into this path very easily. Ancestrally, I had that path kind of laid out for me. But what a shaman is, it's a very ancient healer. And it can be, we usually think of them as men, but they can be men or women, and have been throughout time. It's a tradition that you find around the world in indigenous cultures, even to this day. And it's all about um, allowing your spirit guides in whatever form they take, to help inform you about what it is that is creating pain or dysfunction or fear or whatever it might be, and then energetically shifting that into a more positive place. The way that it's done, the actual process, is that the shaman, and I did this for myself, which is not typical. Usually you get another shaman to work for you, like you get another healer to work for you. But I've done this enough that I basically turn it over to my guides to guide me when I'm in it. But it's really a form of meditation, a very deep meditation. Some people will call it a trance state. I don't experience it that way, I don't think. But for me, it's just going really into a deep, deep meditation. It's usually done to drumming because that helps get your brain waves in the right place, the right frequency to go that deep. Um, and if you are going to try this yourself, always know that you have to have a drumming track that has the callback. So you come back to your body at the end. I forgot to do that a couple of times early on, and it's very disorienting. So I had to figure out how to go back and finish it properly. So I just want to put that out there because if you're interested in this, you can find books, you can find videos about it, and I always like to make sure that you know you gotta purposefully come back into your body energetically. So I did a journey for myself a few weeks ago. It was not long after our last conversation, and I've learned that I have to document what I've experienced in that journey right away because as Michelle was describing earlier, you don't always remember these things because they've shifted. And for me, I always think of it as being so deep in the energy that my human mind is not really participating. It's out of the way. And so I always grab my computer and retell what I experience as best I can in the moment. And I do occasionally get more information as I'm doing that, because knowing is one of my strengths. So I asked permission from Michelle if I could just read you, it's about a page long, what I wrote after that journey, because it has been life-changing. It's a little bit hard to hear the beginning parts because there is trauma that triggered. The question that I asked was, where did this genetic change happen? If you haven't listened to the first one, there is a particular gene called the APOE gene, and there are variations of that. And I carry one copy of what they are now calling the Alzheimer's gene. So I wanted to know where this happened. It's genetic, it's in the DNA. I want to know where it happened because I know as an energy worker and a healer that often knowing where it began allows for the healing to happen. You're not just working in the dark. So that was the question that I asked for this journey. The intention I set was to learn where this gene morph started. And so I'm going to read you this. Uh, and so when I went into this journey, I was shown a story about one of my ancient ancestors. She was a young mother of three, medieval Ireland, small village of 10 or 12 crofts. A croft is like a small farm. Every morning, she made a special herbal tea for her family. I learned after the journey was officially finished that I was receiving some details, that this was a family secret recipe passed down for at least several generations. It was a tea that we would now say boosted the immune system, but at the time they knew it to be an elixir of health. Because of religious witch hunts going on throughout Europe, the tea was potentially dangerous as it could be called a witch's potion. So the women of that line were trained to keep it secret, even from their families, but to make sure that those family members drank it every morning. This line of women had a gift for herbal remedies and often helped others with them, but not this particular remedy because it was so powerful. Anyway, a plague swept through Ireland and eventually wiped out most of the village children and some adults. And that's when someone started noticing that the woman's family was not impacted at all by the plague, and their grief turned to rage. The woman's family was killed, but they left her alive so she would be consumed by her own guilt at causing the deaths of other families, and the reason her own was taken from her. Her grief, not for others after what they had accused her of, being a witch, and had slaughtered her family purposely, beating her but not to kill her, just to harm her, drove her to retreat from reality, though not completely until she had buried all her family together in a pit in the nearby forest so they would eternally be together. She prayed to forget the evil in her neighbors, to forget not her family, but the trauma of watching them be killed one by one. She couldn't bear it and pleaded for help, only remembering them happy and alive. And this prayer intention was manifested in this gene, creating dementia. When she began to notice lapses in her memory, she was grateful and wished for this forgetfulness for others of her line that might experience the terror and grief she did, the hatred of others for her gifts of herbal lore. I was shown a niece, her sister's eldest, a young woman, coming to ask her aunt to come live with them and let them help take care of her. And this is where her aunt said no, she didn't deserve help. She just wanted to forget. And she hoped if ever her niece or her family experienced something so devastating, that she too would be given the grace of forgetting the pain, the forgetting the trauma, and only remembering the good and happy memories. In this way, she passed along this genetic change that made forgetting easier, but only if they needed the forgetting. My guess is there were additional traumas in subsequent generations that, quote unquote, turned on or activated this intention wish through this secret genetic code that made forgetting more easily possible, erasing the memories in reverse order, leaving only the oldest and most meaningful memories to be forgotten last. So that's where it started. It's not an
Wow.
easy story to tell, but it didn't surprise me because I know that women were persecuted as witches for centuries.
Mhm.
And I'm aware that some of that has happened in my own family. Not my current family, but my family line.
Mhm.
So that was really interesting to me because I felt like I finally understood the point of it, that there was a reason for it. When my mother had started going down the dementia spiral, I had been pretty pissed off at my guides about about this and had asked them several different times why this was happening, and particularly because it's kind of an epidemic now. And so it's happening more and more. And the one thing they did say to me over and over again, it's because these people don't want to examine their lives. So they're forgetting. And so once I took that information and what I learned in that journey, it began to make a lot more sense to me about where this comes from and why it happened. It was meant to be a blessing, and yet it's become a scourge. And I have a feeling there's a lot of other people on this same genetic line, if you go back far enough, um, that that it's just spreading. It's spreading like wildfire, and so that was really for me. It was empowering to learn that story. I love story. I'm a story person, a storyteller. But I also know that part of the forgetting is that we can get too connected to the story, and then that keeps it alive, essentially. And so I really didn't look back at that until this morning. And it's for me, I know that learning the story helps to heal the story. And so what I did next, I don't know if you want to move on to the next thing I did.
Well, I'm thinking this is a good place to sip
I can get it.
because then we can, just like what you did, you were able to put it away. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like it was done because the question was answered and you have exactly what you need.
Yeah,
But for those people listening, that process might not be complete. So if we sip
yeah.
on the tea now, that'll create that process to be able to let all of it go. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. And this is why the tea ritual is in this particular podcast, because it is, we can do so much.
Yeah.
And I'm also really interested to the fact that there was a special tea.
Yeah. I actually hadn't just connected it until that moment.
Yeah, me neither, really. I was just like, oh yeah, there was a special tea. And I was just like, and it, boost the immune system. My thought at the time when you said it was it boosted the immune system, but then it got translated into well, it got translated into boosting the immune system rather than just an elixir for wellness.
Hmm.
But how we move it over to symptom
Right.
instead of it lifts you up, which I try to describe when people are purchasing tea. Um,
Yeah.
okay, other than digress, let's move on. So take us forward from that experience.
So about a week and a half or so after I did that journey, I met up with a couple of friends. One of them is a practitioner of a modality called family constellations. And the first time I heard about family constellations was probably 15 years ago. And I thought, this sounds like it's crazy. This doesn't sound like real things. But another friend of mine was hosting a family constellation event at her office, and she was one of my teachers, and I trusted her. And she said, just come, just come. All you have to do is just watch. You don't have to participate if you don't want to, blah, blah, blah. And I went, and it was magical. And I came to really love just being a participant. And family constellations, it's hard to describe. I would encourage you, if you're interested, go look it up. But basically, you are exploring your family line energetically, but you end up, if you are what's called a participant as opposed to a person who sets the constellation, who asks the question, just as I asked in my journey, starting with a question is usually a good place, intention, if not a question. But the first several times I went to these events, I got to be, I got given a role to play in this unraveling whatever it is that you're looking for in your family line. And I was shocked at how easy it was to just step into the energy of that role, and allow myself to just let that come through me. Now I channel, so it shouldn't have been that big a shock, but one time I actually was given a role that I wasn't told what it was, and I just had to look the facilitator in the eyes as she kind of conveyed that to me. And I was doing all kinds of strange things. I was hanging on to people, and I found out at the end that I was the emotion of anger. So it's fascinating work. It's just totally fascinating work. And I knew that after I did the shamanic journey that I really wanted to go ahead and do a constellation pretty quickly. Usually after something like that journey, I would wait a couple, 3 weeks at least to let things kind of settle and shift. But I wasn't waiting. And so the woman who has always done, I've always, seen her facilitate these. I contacted her and said, I don't know if you're still doing these, but I really feel like it was something I need right now. And she said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. And another friend offered to help with it. So it wasn't a big group constellation. It was a more personal one, a more individual one. So I was assuming that we would be looking down my grandmother's maiden name line, the Murphy line, the Irish line, and it came back to my dad's line, which is not even no blood relative that we knew of, to my grandmother's line. Um, and we went back. The way it works, I don't understand exactly how it works, but the facilitator is very intuitive, and she set us up with different, like my parents were, part of the process, and we set it up. It actually went about 5 generations back on my dad's side, to a part of the family that was very dysfunctional, didn't know why. We got back in that fifth generation to we were all all three of us who were doing this were kind of shocked by this very calm, wise woman, clearly a healer. She's like my great 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 grandmother, something like that. Um, and so the trauma in that line happened with her son. And I don't remember all the details, and specifically I was told don't write it down, don't dwell on it, just allow it to shift. So I literally I have this is the sum total of the notes that I have for this. And it was really just so I could get a hold on which line we were working in and how far back we went. But what it came down to is there was a family just below that great 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 whatever grandmother, where there was a lot of strife between the wife and the husband, and there was a son who was 12 or 13, and it was during the Civil War. I think it was a Civil War. It was a war, but Civil War, I think I'm pretty sure is what it was. And the dad was going off to fight, and the teenager 12-year-old was required to go with him into war. And what we learned out of that was that the son felt so guilty and so afraid of killing somebody else, and then so guilty that he had done that during a war, and that triggered this forgetting gene on that side of the family. Now, my family does meet. My parents were fifth cousins. So it's very likely there was a crossover there somehow. I don't know. Genetically, I didn't try to figure it out, but it fits so beautifully with the Irish story that I just shared, that it activated something that activated that gene in me and came down through that line. And so part of the constellation work is not just finding these areas that need healing. In this case, needed a lot of forgiveness, and of self, and even forgiving the people that he killed. We went through that process, um, and so that I just lost my train of thought there. See if I can find it again. So that triggering of that, or just seeing it, witnessing it, taking them through the forgiveness process, taking that kid through that, and then in turn working that back up to his parents, because he blamed his dad for forcing him. He blamed his mom for not protecting him. So there was forgiveness in that area too. And then the parents, the mom had to forgive the dad because the dad was just doing what he had to do. He was required to go to war and bring his son, kind of thing. So there's a lot of forgiveness that happened in there. And that then, in a family constellation, that rolls forward in time. And they say for any healing you do for yourself, it rolls forward 7 generations. It also rolls back 7 generations. And so that healing work that we did with that one person, that boy who'd been forced to go into war and was so mortified by what he'd done, healing that generation affects all the rest of us. And I will tell you that since that happened, and it's subtle at first, I didn't really feel any big change at the time. I felt a little off for about 3 days, like my energy wasn't quite right in my body, and I was grounding myself. I was doing all the things I know how to do, and it just wasn't. And I finally realized this is just the shift happening. I know as an energy worker that energy shifts faster than the physical body does. And so this was just my body adjusting to this very profound change in my ancestral energy. And so combining that with what I learned with from Ireland, and now what I've learned had triggered the more recent activation of these genes, I really felt at peace. And I have felt very peaceful, in myself. External world, no peace there. But for myself, I've felt very centered and grounded and I still have to remind myself to ground myself because this is such different energy in me. But I felt very at peace with this whole process, whereas before I had some fear about it, and I had some overwhelm, of the whole. Okay, I know I am at risk for dementia. I know it for real now, and all the things that I need to do to make sure that it doesn't happen. I really relaxed and I understand it. We've done the work of healing the line. And it, like I said, my family meets, but the genes, we don't know who we're related to after about 3 generations back. The genes somehow have come together in me, as so many freaking things have done in my family life. Um, and it's my turn to end that. This is where I've talked about in the first episode that I'm a pattern breaker. I know that about myself. I know that that's part of my purpose here is to be a pattern breaker. And this one is one that I want to break for my family. I've got aunts who are and an uncle who have been diagnosed. I don't know, it may be too far down the road to help them, but I have 9 cousins from that same part of the family and my own children. And so I'm feeling like maybe I've done a lot of the work already in shifting that pattern. Now I won't know for sure for another 10 years or more if I have broken it. But I will say my brain has felt a lot clearer. I have been a lot less reactive. And there's been a lot of chaos around here. I mean, I live in the US, so I don't have to say any more, but also we've had renovations going on in our house almost every day, right under my office. And so it's been a bit disruptive here, but I have felt very relaxed um, and I don't feel fearful about this diagnosis that I've gotten or this potential situation that I'm now overtly aware of. Um, and it's been miraculous. It really has been miraculous. Um, this is all the spiritual stuff. I'm still taking supplements. I'm taking lion's mane, which is a really good mushroom that is really good
Mhm.
for your brain. So I'm bringing the herbal stuff in. I've brought in a lot of fun exercise. Um, and I just signed up for Michelle's Tai Chi music and movement class. So I'm going to be adding that stuff in as well. So there's still things I want to put in place. I haven't figured out how to eat best, but I think that's a lifelong journey anyway. Um, but I feel like I don't have to rush to get everything in place either, because I think it's really more prophylactic at this point than destiny.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I just really appreciate being able to share those two modalities with people because it's not your typical go-to when you get
Right.
something like this that shows up in your life. Um, so it's but that's what you and I are really tapped into. And
Mhm.
it's part of what I really wanted to be sharing with your audience that there's more than just medicine um, or fatalism, you know, um,
Mhm.
just pretty easy to get into when if you're like me, where I have multiple generations back with all the sisters getting in multiple generations dementia. Um, and I can see where their generations might not really want to look back, might not want
Mhm.
to evaluate their lifetimes. They've been through, depression, World War II, and Vietnam War, and all of these awful things, and the whole civil rights movement. And I mean, a lot of that was pretty traumatic, I imagine. And I've never heard them talk about anything but the civil rights movement, which I was living through. But
Mhm.
so I can imagine that you don't want to look back,
Mhm.
and if you're not introspective and you haven't looked, like I have a lot of family trauma behind me, and I have done the work. I've done a lot of work since I was about 16. on myself, figuring out why I am who I am and how I am and what do I want to change and how do I go about doing that. And so I've been a lifelong journaler on and off as my life has gotten happier. But when I was figuring out everything, I really spent a lot of time doing that. And so I don't feel like I need to reflect any more than I already am doing, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about, really, we've had two world wars in the last 100 years, roughly, and thinking about how many people that's impacted in so many ways. So you can see how, when they call it a pandemic of dementia,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of people who really just wanted to forget that whole part of their life if they
Yeah.
managed to survive it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not to mention those who died, and what that leaves within the family framework as well.
Hmm.
So, um, so as people are listening and thinking about, like, even when you just think about who you are, sitting right where you are at the moment, and that history that's behind you, you can feel the angst. So as you were describing, you're at peace now with it. And I'm thinking, how many people listening are not going to be?
Hmm.
If they're true as they're sitting there and they notice it, and I don't know what they'll notice, but for me, it's like I can feel it on my back,
Hmm.
and it could be that burden that you try to shoulder,
Right.
right? And
Right.
then you have neck and back issues. You don't know
Hmm.
why, you just have them. They don't correct themselves.
Hmm.
Maybe you notice it in the hips. And the hips are always really tight, but you can't walk forward. You can't get yourself moving. You can't find a way to be different.
Yep.
Um, so just ways of noticing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as a healer, I've found that a lot of women will kind of stuff those things they don't want to deal with in their hips.
Mhm.
And men tend to carry it on their shoulders. That just in my limited experience,
Mhm.
um, which is fascinating to me because it's like carrying the burden and stuffing things down. I don't have time to deal with this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to
Mhm.
revisit whatever that trauma was.
Yeah.
And I get that. I totally get that. But that's also where stories come in, because one of the things that are in my early journeys, I always wanted to know the story. What is it that happened that created that particular emotion in me or whatever? And over the last couple of years, I've been getting the messages from my guides a lot that the story doesn't matter anymore, that things are shifting so quickly, the energy time is speeding up, everything is faster, 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 and I think we've all experienced that the
Mhm.
story doesn't matter anymore, and holding on to the story makes it harder to release whatever the pain or the trauma is. So so I shared these stories today because I wanted to give you the example. I will not be going back and looking at them again
Mhm.
because I don't want to hold on to the energy of those.
Mhm.
Um, I can guarantee you they'll probably crop up in something I write in the future, but I won't remember where they came from. I'll think I'm just
Yeah.
inventing it all.
Just
So
start writing.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah. And that's where the idea of where are you going in the future, not that you don't want to look back, but to think about that resiliency and then what does it mean to the future? So what does it mean to be sitting in the peacefulness of transforming the past
hmm.
so that the future doesn't have that come along with it, but that the future also feels different
Yeah,
in the journey of that
yeah, it
instead of the
really
journey
does.
that you've been used to. Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about it as just, shedding the weight that I was carrying around, but that's exactly what it feels like. Feels like I had 100-pound weight on my back that I wasn't even really aware was there. It's like just normal. And I do feel like I've let go.
Hmm.
I haven't done anything to cause this situation for myself. It's the process of the ancestral
Hmm.
heritage. And I've done something to help heal the whole line.
Hmm.
And that for me as a healer is really meaningful because we got a big family, and I had lots of cousins and lots of second cousins, and this will impact all of them. Now
Mm-hmm.
they choose not to let it if they don't want to remember, but they had now it's not destiny, it's just a possibility and it's
Mm-hmm.
choice. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and it can be, for those people listening, it can be as simple as sipping on that tea.
mhm,
Many people, while they're walking in nature, making that conscious effort to connect to the ground, finding a place where you can put things into the ground and then let the ground transform it.
yeah.
In therapeutic touch, I was just going back through some teaching materials, and there was the black spot, and to have in a class setting, put the black spot over in the corner. So anybody who had things that showed up that they didn't want to have could just put it over in the black spot. The black spot would just take it and absorb it and then transform it.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have in your house or where you go walking a place where you say, this is my transformation spot. And
Mm-hmm.
then anything that comes to the forefront is able to go into that spot. That may be helpful. And then
Yeah.
it might be that communion with nature, sipping on the tea, having some energy infused water.
Mm-hmm.
It can be that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget to reach out for help, because there's a lot of, even if the two modalities we've talked about today aren't your cup of tea, if I can say that, there are so many different ways that healers are helping people to process the things that create pain, whether it's emotional pain or ancestral pain or physical pain. There's lots of different ways of doing that. And so I would encourage you to ask around. The universe will provide if you ask for someone who can help you. And then, when you're talking to people going, hey, I'm looking for somebody like this. If you know anybody, let me know. Somebody's going to know something, you know? Um, and
Mhm.
that's really what I did. I reached out for the shamanic work because that's one of my favorite ways to just
Mhm.
be even. But I also remembered that I had not worked with this woman, the facilitator of the family constellations. I haven't worked with her in probably 5 years, maybe longer. But I reached out to her and she was like, yep, I'll help. Because that just, for me, that felt like one that was really an important piece of this puzzle that I'm putting together of how do I approach this from a
Mhm.
place of calm and a place, but also a place of being informed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Ooh,
excuse me.
wow. So I'm thinking about the other ways too, because music and movement,
Mhm.
what we had transpire yesterday, there's just every week is so fascinating. But my focus for the fall here is to not think structurally, not think about healing from inside and fix the structure, fix the chemistry, any of that, but to actually go to the outside and work from the outside. And yesterday, my harpist ended up, she had hurt her finger working on some house renos. And so she could only play with three of the four fingers, and she had to change her chord structure. And as she was changing that chord structure, we found the figure eight pattern that weaves in and out of us and passes us through different dimensions.
Mm.
And so the movement patterns for Tai Chi, which I know very well, and I feel the impact of them and understand them structurally, I was able to actually experience them from the outside through this figure eight pattern because her harp was picking up the figure eight. And for those people listening, that might sound really way out there. But as I've been exploring through the music and movement and exploring intuitively how the music can transform things, it's just so powerful. And frequency and color are the fastest way to make changes.
Mm.
And like you said, when you let go of the story brings us back inside. It brings us into our mind. It brings us back to the consciousness. And sometimes it's too slow.
Hmm.
It's too slow for where we're going and what we want to do. And so the explorations are there. And then to experience something like how those figure eight patterns move through you, that's very cool. So
Yeah.
as people are going to find the way they're going to move forward, and if they choose to just heal within this lifetime for themselves, or they decide they want to do similar to you and help clear the pathway for the next generation, then just knowing that these delightful situations arrive. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
The universe always provides, but you got to ask. You know?
And the other thing, because I had another conversation with people today about goal setting and intention, and how hard it can be to do that. It's elusive.
Mhm.
So your idea of asking a question, I want to know about where this comes from and how far back. Very, very specific. You have the answer, but you didn't stop there. You actually then transformed it so that it's all done, moved forward, finished. For some people, they might find it and then hold on to it.
Mhm.
And so for those people listening, to energetically shift it so that story transforms from words into frequency, frequency into harmony
Mhm.
rather than discord, and
Yep.
then it's just not recognizable anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say if you find a shaman and you get a journey from them, they are not going to tell you the story. They'll just tell you whatever you need for the healing aspect.
Mhm.
They will probably, chant at you or bring a soul fragment back, or there's all kinds of fun things that we can do, but they're not going to tell you the story because
Mhm.
they don't want you to hang on to the story. That's not the important part. For me, because I'm a storyteller, I always like to know that, but really it's not the important part. It's the important part is the healing that happens from exposing that story. And the shaman is responsible for that part. So
Mhm.
don't feel that you have to worry that you're going to get some traumatic story, like the one I shared with you. You're not going to get that information. So,
Mhm. Mhm. I'm also really, really in awe when people choose their daily habits, right? They get up in the morning. Some people can't function till they've had 2 cups of coffee. Other people function by having 2 glasses of water.
mhm,
Um, Nobody functions until they've been for their walk. They're taking the dog out, whatever it happens to be,
mhm,
but the way the habits all come together. But to realize in those previous generations, they had the tools to optimize their day and they were using them.
mhm.
But then sometimes where we can't change our habits, they just keep coming back. What
Yeah.
you had said about, you know, um, losing your whole family because you were doing the right thing. That would be something you would want to forget, but
Yeah.
also a reason not to change a pattern because you were punished for doing the right thing. And
Mhm,
for so many people who have eating challenges, who have habits they know they should get rid of, they can't stop smoking,
mhm.
those pieces where it's so powerfully ingrained to then stop and think about what happened previously that made it so hard for you to get to the place where your habit is a wellness habit
Mhm.
because it did exist and now
Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah.
that's okay. That's a powerful, thought-provoking thing. Yeah. My brain goes to my dad, who was a smoker. He was able to stop being well, not stop being, but stop drinking,
Mm-hmm.
but he could never kick cigarettes. And I
Mm-hmm.
can I know just enough about his family line to go, I bet I know where it started, but I'm not going there. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
then there's a really good question because if somebody has enough strength and ability to stop drinking and the alcohol is not pulling them, cigarettes can't be that difficult compared to the pull that alcohol can have.
you wouldn't
So
think.
then you go, then it lends itself to, why is it still there?
Mm-hmm.
What does it serve?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure so many people can realize too, right? You have this conversation with yourself. I'm going to eat better. I have to eat better. I'm not going to repeat what I did today because I need to be eating better. And then that teaser comes up 2 days later. And what do? You go right back around to it again. You go, okay, I'm not going to do that again, right? And it's just a repeat piece. So I think it's empowering to know that it's not your baggage necessarily. You're just the brunt of receiving the baggage
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
still carrying it.
Yeah.
And you have a choice to be able to let go of that baggage. So there's our ginger.
Mm-hmm.
Let go, because what will you receive in its place? And if you let go of those eating patterns that continually hold on to the ancestral story, or you go to the place where your body's optimizing, what are you doing now that you have always wanted to do but have not been able to get to?
Mm-hmm.
Where would that take you? And just the same as you're releasing all these pieces to get down to the energetic bottom of, I like the idea of forgetting rather than dementia,
Mm-hmm.
but of the forgetting piece, what is possible, knowing that going forward, so much more is going to be available to you. What would
Yeah.
that look like? The pretty vibrant sky ahead of you,
Yes.
then 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 that dementia piece, or
Right.
even it's almost like a forgetting cloak or something that's going to
Yeah.
sit on top.
In a good way.
Yeah, yeah.
There's forgetting to not examine, and then there's forgetting because you've shifted that energy already.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm,
and I definitely feel that. Well, okay. Let me just put this out. I have gone back just in the last week. One of the shifts I've noticed is I've gone back to working with oracle cards at least several times a week. It's been daily a lot. It's been probably a couple of weeks that I've been doing this. This was the very first way it was a gateway drug for me into um, being in communication with my guides and understanding a bit more about how energy works. And I had a lot of fun with it. I was playing with the cards, and I've gone back to that in the last couple of weeks, um, because it was a stabilizing part of my morning habit that I had let go a while back, maybe several years back. I would pull them out now and then, but I used to pull one card every day when I was just first learning to do this stuff. And to me, it's been very comforting because it is an old habit that was healthy. And it does encourage me to kind of get quiet. It's part of meditation for me, actually. I often will meditate first, but sometimes I find that I'm just kind of in this meditative flow when I sit down with the cards, and it's allowing for I want to say an opening again. It's like I had closed off a part of me that was constantly connected with the energy consciously, and this is reestablishing the communication for me. And I think I was just so overwhelmed by everything else that's going on that I just cut that off. It's like I got the human thing to deal with right now, and I don't have the bandwidth for anything else. And I think I've made space for that because I've let go of that ancestral trauma.
mm-hmm,
That's what has moved back in. It's like, oh, look, you've got the bandwidth now to reconnect with your spiritual practices. And they've always been very beneficial to me. Um, and So it's just one of those things that you may not know what changes are coming. And they probably will include old good habits that maybe you were doing as a child and you haven't done since then because the trauma happened, shortly after that period. Um, so it's fun to watch yourself as you go through these processes and see what lost joy you might find,
mm-hmm,
that you didn't know you could have again.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's interesting when you talk about being on a health journey already, but then those pieces that pull you back, and that
Hmm.
backsliding bit. when we look at the chakras, they talk about each chakra having a 7-year cycle. So we kind of look at our life through the lens of one chakra for about 7 years, and then it transfers to the next.
Mm.
So if you didn't deal with something in that first level, you may end up with it in the second. And it may follow along with you. But if you start to think in those terms of you had those healthy habits, but then something happened and they just didn't come around, and then to think about, I can let go of that and I can transform into this other level. And rather than, because it's really easy to judge yourself, not enough willpower, rate yourself for being back there. You should be able to do better. But then knowing that it's a wave, it's a layer, it's a journey. There's different layers to even that same topic of wellness. And you can have different generational pieces that you didn't realize had small tugs 7 years ago, now have more significant tugs because it's coming through a different lens.
Okay, that's interesting. I had forgotten that about the chakras.
Yeah, I forget about it too, and then every so often it pops back in. And I should pay attention, and I don't know when the transitions occur, but at least I can start to think about, okay, how have things changed for me, and in what way have some of those ideas come in, or the habit I do want to get back to that I really enjoy is still elusive to me. So if it is, then something's still not quite in that alignment piece. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Wow. All right. So I think we should have a sip for where we brought people. And for those people listening, if something's come up that you want to dive into, then take the impetus. But also know that by sipping on the tea, we're just going to bring that back into a peaceful place for you. So it doesn't mean we've brought anything up that's got to stay. We're going to let it go. And if you want to go deeper, you have the option. So slange one more time. Yeah. That's what I feel like too. All right. So I wanted, last time when we had our conversation, I shared the injury response technique and also talked about the assemblage point, which with the figure 8 patterns comes up again. And I thought I would share a little bit about meridians this time. And for people who may have a question, they may have a goal or an intention where they want to go, where they ultimately would like to be spending their time and doing things. This can be very helpful. It changes the amount of, from the body perspective, changes the amount of effort required by the body to move. And if people are interested in diving deeper into it, if they go to my YouTube channel, to the Tai Chi Wellness playlist, and in the search bar, you can just put meridians in, and the meridians will pop up. But it'll be the meridians with the seated to standing Danyu. And what happens is, as we trace the energy lines, the effort in the body continues to shift. The joints match up with each other. The muscles harmonize. The way you stand on your feet changes. So pressure points disappear where imbalance in the structure is there. That you can all notice by how I put that particular video together. But for today, let's play a little bit with central and governing. And this will allow us to bring in the figure 8s, but also the energy egg. So the outside edge of the auric field. Central and governing has this beautiful connection to that. Central helps with the nurturing cycle within the body of how the elements come together. And governing is the other side of that, the yin yang of that, which is the co-cycle, changing patterns, changing behaviors. And could be within the body, but it can also be in our lifestyle and what we're doing and our choices. So this could be very powerful for people to get started. So what I'll invite people to do is just consider as they think about, as I was describing my back and what I can feel about history kind of sitting on my back, you can have something, maybe it's a sore shoulder, maybe it's you want to taste things more, you want to be more involved in your life, whatever you want to bring forward. Let's trace central and governing. So what we're going to do is take the hands and bring them in front of the body. Just don't have to touch the body, but we're just going to bring the hands up the front from the pubic bone to the bottom lip. Okay. And once we've done that, we're going to take the hands and then we're going to travel down the sides of the body. And instead of going to the front, to the pubic bone, we're going to actually go to the back, which will link us with governing, going to the tailbone. And that's going to come up the back, over the top of the head, to the top lip. And then we're going to take our hands back down the center of the body, so on the sides, and it's going to link up with central. All right. As we do that, we have this beautiful outside vibrant energy. So take your hands a little bit further from the body than up close, which is where we typically will trace, about an inch or so off the body. But now what we're going to do is go a little bit further out. So coming up the front, take the hands over to the side, take them to the back, over the top of the head, bringing them back to the front, to that top lip, and then down the side again. Now, we're sitting down, so if people are doing it while sitting down, you'll notice you're going to start rocking back and forth. So kind of going closer to the pubic bone, closer to the tailbone, in this beautiful rock back and forth, which is going to soften the pelvic floor and open the hips. We have this beautiful connection. Your feet may be connected to the ground because you're seated flat, and you may notice that they change too. So let's do it one more time. So with our hands even further out, up the front, comes to the side, down the center of the body, up over the back, over the top of the head, top lip, out to the edges to the side, come down and back to the front. Okay, now we brought a couple different ideas in, and I was saying how I was feeling that heaviness on my back, and now it's like I'm sitting up, which before I was struggling, I was leaning closer and closer forward. Anything different for you, Laurin?
Yeah, I'm also sitting up straighter, which is I tend to be very slumped, and so that's
shifted.
good. Also, I just got that sort of beautiful flush of light energy throughout the body as we did that, which is
nice.
One of my favorite ways to feel.
Nice. Okay, so for those people that want to go and do the rest of the tracings, we do the earth and fire elements, then we go water and fire, and then we go wood and metal. And that leads us through emotions, so which is another video there. If you want to do meridians and emotions, you can do that. And then you can identify a little bit more with the relationships between those elements. But this gives you a good place to start. To think also about, yes, you can trace the line close to the body, which is the way it'll be in the video. But then know if you want to expand it out into that energy egg, you can make it bigger. And what we created was, because we went up and down and up and down, we created the figure 8 pattern. That figure 8 pattern was coming front to back. Our hands, it was on the side. And then we had this up and down and that rotation that came through the hip, as everybody was noticing that softness. So, okay. So as we finish off today, is there anything else that comes to mind that we didn't bring up that you just want to make sure gets said?
I don't think so. I think I've said everything I had planned to say. There is one other thing that I just wanted to mention. I noticed in myself after when the first episode of this was released, I felt very vulnerable. I had some doubts about doing this, but I was able to go, no, this is really my calling. This is how I help people, by sharing my story. And so I just want to thank people for being here. for listening. And I do hope that that you're experiencing some sort of healing as you listen to us. It's vulnerability is, I have to remind myself sometimes, is one of my superpowers. So I'm gonna bring it like it is.
Well, and I think that's really important to talk about because it takes so much courage. And as people are looking at their lives and asking the questions and wondering if they should be doing something similar to you or start a quest, that takes courage
Mhm.
and that vulnerability to say, I'm going to let that piece of me that's shy or anxious or whatever be silenced by my boldness to move forward. Um, where will it take me?
Yeah.
And your journey is going to be a very different journey from that person that just crawled into that hole and just said, I'm just going to, do everything I need to prepare,
Mhm.
and then I will accept my fate. And some people need to do that, and that's their journey. But if it's people that are listening, if that's not their journey, you have provided this space to say things can be very different. So
Yeah. Good.
thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for hosting this.
All right. So our closing reflections, and it's what I have on my notes here is the courage in walking this path and sharing discoveries, which can be inspiring. And this this conversation reminds us that dementia doesn't have to be a decline. Forgetting can be a way, but it's also the possibility of healing. It's the opportunity for wisdom,
Mhm.
and then rewriting the story for ourselves and for future generations. And as you said about the chaos that um, our children and our grandchildren are experiencing in this lifetime now, um, providing them with the grace and the strength and the endurance for something that we could never anticipate, and creating that resiliency for them is really
Yeah.
important. So,
Yeah. I think resilience is the name of the game, for everything actually, but certainly for this journey that I'm on. It's just, how do we create resilience? How do we be resilient in the face of everything?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. May we all remember that within us there is a warrior spirit. There is a power that we can release with. We have the ability to reorganize and to create an inspiring future. And until next time, may you pause, sip something nourishing, and then face your life with courage and grace.
Mhm.
Thank you, Laurin, for being on this journey.
Thanks, Michelle. Mhm.
All right. Be well, everyone.